Welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions. I am your man, John, and today I have with me a veteran of the podcast. He's never been on the video version of the podcast, but my man, Mike. Uh, Mike, the way I always do this when I have people on, and Mike was on here a long time ago, so Mike was like one of the OG visitors to the podcast back when we were just doing audio. But Mike, I don't know if we did this then, but I let the guests introduce themselves to the people. You talk a little bit about, what your family makeup is, you know what I'm saying, how many kids you have, and then we kind of go into the conversation. So,
Hi.
Mike, introduce yourself to the people.
I bet. What's up, y'all? My name is Mike Hill Jr. I'm originally from New York City. I grew up in the foster care systems. I actually lived in every borough, but I call Harlem and the Bronx home. And I live in Vermont now. I've been out here for 18, 19 years.
Whew.
I know, man. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. I came out here from college and then dipped and then came back. My family structure, I was born 4 siblings. I'm the oldest of 4. Boy, girl. Fortunately, I don't really talk too much to the second oldest, which is my sister. But I do talk to my brother, who's the third oldest, and my baby sister, who's obviously the 4th, last one in line. They all got kids, so I'm an uncle. Actually, they all got kids but my baby sister, so I'm an uncle to some nieces and nephews. And last but not least, I have my own child with his mother, who is my ex-wife, and I'm remarried to actually one of John's closest friends. Her name is Dr. Kelly Perkins. She's a wonderful, amazing woman. She's been an amazing partner and stepmom to my son, Elon, and he's 10 years old. So that's me right there.
That's what's up. And so, so interestingly enough, Mike is one of the few people who ever comes on this show who actually has a child in the same age range as mine. Like everybody else who been on here, their kids is older or younger, you know what I'm saying? And but Mike's son, Elon, is very similar, and they've never met. My son and his son have never met. Mike and I have only actually met in person once.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of conversations over the years. As he was a suitor for my friend Kelly, and they have now married. And God help you, Mike, for being married to. I love Kelly. Love you, Kelly. but it's always cool to have fathers on the podcast who have an experience that I believe is in very much in line with the kind of the life that I live, the things that I've experienced, the conversations that I like to have. And so, Mike, thank you for being here. What we try to do is we try to stay away from cursing, mostly because I like to be able to have this be an opportunity for parents to listen to this in the car with their kids if they need to, or whatever they're doing, and I want to make sure that I try to keep it as family friendly as possible. That don't mean that it don't get a little rough in here sometimes, a little raunchy, a little crazy, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we want to try to keep it in that realm. So before we started recording, Mike and I were just having a conversation, just vibing a little bit about marriage, you know what I'm saying? And it's something that is always a topic of interest for parents. I always tell people that one of the hardest things to do is to parent a child. And so it's hard because the kid has things that they need from you, and your spouse or ex-spouse, they have things that they need from you, and you're trying to manage all of these other people minds and emotions in a situation where you really only know your mind and your emotions, right? And so kind of the topic that we are talking about today is one that is a large one, and that's why I say it's kind of it's going to be us vibing a little bit, just having a conversation. Is this idea of how we handle the stressors of life that come into our relationship, whether it be with our sons or with our spouse, and also I want to say it like this: how we use the word, the phrase "I love you." And so I put it that way because if at all we talk about spouses, there's a connection there as well. But also, and importantly, also very important, all of it is important, is the idea of how we use that phrase with our sons. So I guess the first question I'll ask you, and this is one that I should always ask. Shame on me because I don't always ask it, but is just a mental health check, my friend. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Actually, I'm pretty Gucci. Yeah, I think I would say my mental health. Yesterday it was a little rocky because it was funny enough. The conversation we about to have, that was happening for me. Some
Hmm.
things happened in the morning. It influenced how I engage with my kid, and then it changed how I engage with my kid as well. So I wasn't in the best mental and emotional space yesterday, but today I feel better. Um, so yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing okay.
Good, good. Hey,
Yeah,
you
thanks
know
for
we,
asking.
yeah. Hey, man, got to, and that's why I say I need to make sure I do it more often because we all have those days, those moments. You know what I'm saying, where we just need to um step back and be like, yo, I I can't right now. Like this is not
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's not where I am. It's not um where I want to be, whatever it is. And so we have to be okay with those moments as well. And so I asked that question. Like I said, I should ask that question more often. I'm gonna try to remember, keep that in my mental Rolodex to ask that question whenever I have guests on in the future. So with that said, let's chat a little bit. You know what I'm saying, about the like, especially how, if you don't mind, a little bit about like how the stress of the outside kind of affected the way you handle your son. Um, let's talk about that. And I'll tell you first my experience with that. And it's an interesting one because I think my life has been a lot of moments where I probably stressed more than I should have about things that I didn't have control over, or situations where I felt like I had it squared away only to find out something else needed to be done, and I let those things kind of take precedent over what I wanted to do or what I should have been doing with my family. And
yeah,
when those moments happen, I find myself getting like frustrated to the point where it's become just like a little thing. Like my I have a little fuse, and it takes one little thing to kind of set me off. Um, and those are always the worst moments. I feel the worst in those moments, because it didn't have to get to that point,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
my kids don't understand like how it got to that point. They didn't do anything that was that to that level of like frustration to be
yeah,
caused. And so it's always tough when you take out things on your kids, and they don't have any idea why, and in some cases I don't even know how I got that far. um but what about you, man?
Um, so I'll share about like um. Well, actually, let me do it this way. So I think I've come. I think I've come pretty far, and I still got a lot more to go when it comes to the, like, how the external forces impact and influence how I am with my child. So when I first when we first found out we were pregnant, I was ecstatic and everything like that, and then he came, and I think a layer that needs to be explicitly touched upon is that my son's mother is white. And so my ex-wife is a white woman who grew up in Vermont her whole life, and like her, she can trace a lot of her ancestors who grew up in Vermont too. And so that's a cultural reality that I think neither one of us took in consideration when we, connected, cultural and racial aspects. And so he came about, he's 10 right now. This is 2020. So 2015, this is happening. And I don't know if you remember in 2015, I think it's continuously been happening every year, right? But like racial stuff was happening, racial tensions was high. I was about to have a, a mixed kid with a person who really honestly, I think in the most clearest and just straight to the point terms, really thought that their whiteness could protect our child from racism, right? Even out themselves understanding that, but that's essentially what was happening. When I wanted to have conversations or talk about preparing or anything like that, that's how it would manifest for them. And so I was dealing with the stress of, hey, I've been a black man. At that point, I had been a black man for like 30 years of my life, right? the, the trauma of growing up as a black man and in Vermont and and then like I'm about to have a kid with someone whose racial awareness is that of an infant, and I was stressed out. And so got like thank goodness and thank God that he was too young at that point to really be impacted by that reality that I was navigating. And so it didn't spill out on him, but it spilled out in my marriage at the time. Like, cause I would talk about something that was relevant to me or important to me racially or culturally, and then I would get dismissed or get minimized or get rationalized. And I feel like I'm not being heard. And then the instant I kind of lost my stuff, right? Or, got angry enough where I raised my voice or we got into an argument, then it's like, why are you yelling at me? Right. And I'm like, hold up, wait. I'm not just randomly walking in the house and like,
Right.
so that unfortunately didn't really get better until I did some counseling. I started to do my own healing around racial trauma. And there's never like an end period aspect of that as a black person, right? And even more so as a black man. But it got better. By the time it got better, it then started to impact Elon because he was now because when we divorced or separated, he was around 4 or 5 years old, and so by that time he got to experience the yelling matches that we were having. He got to experience, my anger when I couldn't control it and I was trying to discipline him because I'm mad about something that his mom did, right? Or something that's happened out in the world, right?
Right.
And so it got better, but he had that impact on him. And now like he's 10 years old and we're still dealing with how that impacted him. He has anxiety, social anxiety. And his anxiety shows up as a processing delay because he's so afraid to express. He's afraid to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing that it just shuts him down mentally. And then he gets frustrated at himself because he's smart enough where he knows what to say, but he doesn't know how to say it. Right. And so he's 10 years old and we've been, because we both done our work, his mom and myself. So the good news is that she's not as racially oblivious as she was in the past. She's still that though. Don't get me wrong.
Hey.
She's still that, but
she's
not
only
as
10
bad.
she's only 10 years old in that now. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So how clever. That was smooth. That was real smooth. But so this brings me back to, yesterday what happened was I think he's been conditioned, like he can cry, which I'm very grateful for that we both was like, yes, let's raise our boy because we didn't genderize him until he literally said, "I'm a boy," and we're like, "All right, cool." Right? Like we wasn't calling him he, we wasn't calling him him. We were like, "This is Elin," Or when they ask, is it a boy or girl? We'd be like, "Oh, we named him Elin." Elin, like we were purposeful about that, but
Mm-hmm.
so in any case, he because of everything that I shared, he was conditioned, or he's kind of getting out of the conditioning. Like when I hurt myself, or something, or like I experience some pain, if I cry like loud enough, then that the parent that I'm dealing with won't pay attention to any potential fault that happened and just pay attention to I'm in pain, right? So like let's say he dropped something on his foot, shattered. In the past, we like, yo, you just broke a plate and didn't pay attention to his pain, right? And so yesterday he stubbed his toe, going into the bathroom, about to do his morning routine, and he started crying. And I thought he was crying because I told him to go do his morning routine. So I told him to come outside of the bathroom, and he sat on the couch. And I was like, "Yo, what happened?" And he's like, "I stubbed my toe." And he was already crying, and then he was crying, and my response to him crying was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. Let me see your toe," because I was about to kiss his boo boo. Right? He's
Right,
still
right, right, right,
young
right.
enough
Yeah.
where I could kiss his boo boo. Right? Even as a boy, and I think I actually want to challenge that too for people who listening. Like, he's a 10-year-old boy. He's a 10-year-old kid. Right? Like he shouldn't be just because he's a boy. Soak it up, put some dirt on it. Like, no, let me kiss the boo boo. Right? So when I was like, "Hey, let me see your toe. Let me give you a kiss," his response to that was, he started like milking
Okay, okay,
the
okay.
milking the like, "Oh, I'm in pain. My dad sees me in pain. Okay, let me like start trying to wail to get as much sympathy as I can get." And I was I was already dealing with something from the missus, not my new wife, not his mom, the missus, and I had just read some news about some grimy something that happened around racial issues in
Mm-hmm,
our country, right?
mm-hmm.
So he started to do, I was like, "Stop, man, what are you doing?" And then my wife came out the bedroom, his stepmom, Kelly, and she was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And her coming out, him doing this, what I already have in mind. I was like, it's kind of overheated.
Right.
Um, and I was like, "Just wait right here." I got up and walked
Yeah. Hey.
away. I walked away. And then Kelly came and found me, and I was like, "Hey, it's not you. I just got overwhelmed. We good. I'm fine." And so she went back in the bedroom. I sat back down, and in the ridiculousness of the situation that I just described, in my personal opinion, what came out of it was actually something that I had been struggling to talk to my son about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, how do I talk to my boy who's going to turn into a man, let alone a black man, but a man? How do I talk to him about um weakness without it being done through a toxic masculine lens?
Mm. Mm.
Right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
so like I was like, okay. So when I sat back down, I was like, "Come here." He cuddled up with me, and I had my arm around him, and he's chilling on the couch. And I was like, "Hey, man, listen, you something like just this earlier in the week, Kelly's been telling me that like when you make mistakes or you hurt yourself, you allow yourself to feel emotions, you allow yourself to like take responsibility, and then you can move through it, right?" And I'm like, I asked him like, "So why was it when I asked you to see your toe to kiss your boo boo that you decided to just start wailing? Like you're 10, you're not a baby anymore. I know you're still a kid, but you're not a baby anymore. Why did you do that?" He's like, "I don't know." And I knew, but I wanted to know if he knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Okay, no worries, man. All right, so Elin, listen, I want to talk to you about weakness. You know, mommy and daddy and Kelly want you to cry. We want you to show your emotions and talk about how you feel. And you do that. And you're good at it." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, cool. All right. So I want to talk to you about weakness because how I was taught about weakness, I don't think it was the right way. But I'm going to teach you this way. and how I've kind of learned now that I'm a little older as a guy. The two things that define weakness now, buddy, for me is that weakness is when you exaggerate your pain, right? Why are you exaggerating your pain? And I asked him, um, about like, hey, so when you stubbed your toe, was it as bad as there was another incident where he definitely deserved? Like he was like, yeah, man, like this is painful. This ain't cool. He had like a cut. You know how you get a cut on your Achilles heel and you put
Hmm.
a sock on and it just rubs the cut,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you can't really touch it, or you know, he had one of those, and it hurt. And like I know it hurt, right? And I was like, when you stubbed your toe, was it as painful as that? He's like, nah. I was like, okay. You remember how you cried when that was when you had that cut on your heel? He's like, yeah. I was like, did you have to cry like that when you stubbed your toe? He's like, no. I was like, so you were exaggerating your pain because you wanted daddy to feel sorry for you, right? He's like, yeah. And I was like, man, I was already feeling sorry for you. I was about to kiss your boo boo. You didn't need to exaggerate your pain. That's weakness, man. You don't need to exaggerate your pain. You're exaggerating your pain because you think it's going to get you this result, and that's. I didn't say this to him, but in my head I was like, that's
Right.
manipulative. You don't need to do that, right? And so that's weakness is when you're exaggerating your pain for no reason. Another thing about weakness is that when you don't try your best or your hardest when you know you can do more. That's weakness too. Like if you're not putting your best foot forward and you know you can put your best foot forward and you're choosing not to put your best foot forward for not a good reason, like you're not exhausted, you're not tired, you're not sick, you're not hurt, and you still like, you know, that's weakness. And so we went over that. We talked about that. I was like, so what's weakness? I had him repeat it to me.
Right.
So what's weakness? You know, and and I was like, so he got up and I was like, you know, do your morning routine, get dressed. We got to get out of here because it was a transition day. And he got up, you know, he did what he needed to do. And before he walked away, I said, hey man, I love you. You know that, right? He's like, yeah, and gave me a big old hug. Then he went and got dressed, and you know, the rest is history.
Okay.
So it's interesting to have that question, both of those questions, because that literally happened to me yesterday. You know,
It's interesting. Thank you for sharing that story. First
it was
off, I think
long-winded, very
no, no,
very
no, man.
long-winded.
That is good. That was good. And I think that there's a lot of elements in that that are super important for fathers, for all parents, honestly, but for fathers to think about. And the first one that stood out to me was this idea of toxic masculinity, right? So a couple weeks ago, had some other friends on the show. We talked a little bit about that on some level, redefining masculinity, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this idea of redefining masculinity, I think um is very much one that has some level of culture in it that we have to always be aware of. And what I mean by that is, we live in a culture as black men, or grew up in a, maybe grew up in a culture as black men of first, black men were not in the home in our childhood, right? That's 80s babies, you know what I'm saying? It was 70s and 80s, men were being asked to leave the house in order for the home to even be able to function, right? Like financially, you had to leave the house in order for them to be able to have enough resources for the house to function. Unfortunately, that was by government proclamation, if you will, uh, with the whole welfare and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And otherwise, if the father was in the home, then it was almost impossible for the mother to stay home and take care of the kids. So both parents were out working. So with that said, oftentimes you will hear things like, you have to be the man of the house. You have to, take on the role of the man, or you have women who are raising little boys and treating them like they're
Man of the house.
the men of the house, right? Sometimes like a husband, like a boy, like getting treated like older than they are and having more things heaped on them than they should as young children. myself included, right? And
Yeah.
so I think about how that has affected the way that I interact with my sons. First, I didn't grow up with my father, so I didn't have a direct comparison to like how I was taught to be a man on how I am working with them on manhood. But the things that have been most important to me are those moments for them to understand that it's okay to have your feelings. Feel your feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an important thing. We don't bottle those up. We don't hide those. We don't put them away. But also understand that there is a level of consciousness that you have to have as the person who's having those feelings to understand what level those feelings need to be at, right? So there's a difference between stubbing your toe level and I just lost my job level,
Yeah.
or you know what I'm saying? There's a difference between, you know, I overslept level of emotion and oh my gosh, you know, I don't know how I'm gonna eat tomorrow level of emotion, right? And so like really understanding those places, and then you know, obviously they don't have to deal with all of those things, but those are things that maybe they will have to deal with, and they have to be at an appropriate understanding on how to handle those things in order to be able to move beyond them. Because where we are today is we see a lot of people who can never move beyond the moment that they're in because it is so paralyzing to them that they don't know what to do. And when you get to that place as a person, as a woman or a man, then now you are experiencing that weakness in a way that is not going to benefit you at all. So I talk on my sons about, you know, understanding like the level of what they've done and how that affects other people, if it affects other people, and why they made the choices they made. So example, yesterday it turned out that my youngest son had his birthday not too long ago, and he got a gift card for Roblox. And he hardly plays Roblox, but his older brother decided that he was going to try to do what I do, which is I take the gift cards, I take the gift card, I put it on Wyatt's account. Wyatt don't particularly care about the Roblox gift cards. He ain't really
Mm-hmm.
buying nothing on the game, so I hadn't put that gift card on his account. It was sitting around.
Yep, yep, yep.
My oldest son decided that he was going to take it upon himself to put it on the account.
Well,
Messed up, and put it on his account instead of his brother's account. So so here we are. I'm like, who told you to do that? Like
mhm.
who told you to go through those steps? Ain't nobody asked you. Your brother didn't ask you. I didn't ask you. He was like, nobody. I thought I was being helpful. I know you in your brain you thought you was being helpful, but you need to understand why that was not helpful. You see where we are now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you know, he starts getting all upset and emotional about it. I'm like, look, ain't no point in getting upset about it. It don't change the fact of what you did. What you did is what you did. I was like, you need to own up to what you did. And there's nothing you can say. I don't care how many times you say you thought you was being helpful, that does not change the situation. So let's own up to what you did. Let's take that moment in and now you can apologize for it and we can move on from it because that's all you can do. You got to own the situation. You got to take, and he's 11. You know what I'm saying? He's never going to, at 11, fully get it because they still in this fight or flight mindset for everything. And everything is always flight. It's always live first. And so, you know, so then we have to have the conversation about his integrity and understanding the importance of people being able to believe you. His mother, myself, his teachers, his integrity. That's all you have is your integrity, right? So and so I bring that up to say that even in those moments of tears, right? They have the old story of the boy who cried wolf, right? Like it's very similar in mindset, right? Like you have to take the moment that are given to you and make a decision on what level of of response you need in order to get beyond that. He just felt like in order to be seen, in order to be heard, he had to take it to the next level. Um, and and sometimes I think that, and that goes all the way back to what I was saying originally about it being a cultural thing. And I think that, that's one of those things for me that I oftentimes think about. It's like, look, we don't have no, like, you can look around all you want and expect somebody to come to your rescue. That ain't the world we live in right now. Like,
Yeah,
you
no.
you ain't about to get that. So
Mhm.
so I mean, I guess my next question to you is, um you talked a little bit about the whole idea of uh things coming in from the outside and how those things affect the relationship, the situation. What's been your biggest challenge in leaving the outside world at the door, especially as it relates to the news and all the things that happened in this country since what was it, January 20th? Uh,
January 6th. January
January.
6th.
No, well,
You
yeah,
talking about
no.
when he was, yeah, January 20th.
Yes, this
This time,
January
this time,
20th,
yeah,
right,
January
right,
20th,
right,
yeah.
right, right. So how do you like what's been your biggest challenge in leaving those things outside the door, what I'm saying, leaving those things out.
Emotional regulation and reminding myself of my coping mechanisms and my surviving mechanisms. I mean, my coping mechanisms and my thriving mechanisms, because I
Hmm.
think there's a difference between a coping mechanism and a thriving mechanism. And we don't talk about that all the time, if at all, honestly. It kind of conceptualize coping mechanisms. I think we try to package or conflate coping and thriving. And also, even more so as a Black person in this day and age right now, like we do need to expand our conceptualization of coping mechanisms to include thriving mechanisms. Um, and so, coping mechanisms, obviously, I think a lot of people already know what coping mechanisms are, but thriving mechanisms are aspects or tasks or things that you do to like center what what helps you thrive, what helps you not just survive but thrive, but like, hey, like I'm filling my cup up all the way, not halfway to get through the day, not halfway to get through the week, not halfway to get through the month. That's what coping mechanisms are for.
Right.
What are your thriving mechanisms? And so the hard part for me has been like emotional regulation and remembering that I have to also tap into my thriving mechanisms as much as I tap into my coping mechanisms. I think that's
Man,
been the hard part for me.
oh, man, I have to tell you, I appreciate you saying that because honestly, I mean, I know you the professional here on on that piece of it, but the idea, like, just in terms of the, like, because the terminology to me has always been one of what, like, really centered on what are my coping mechanisms, what are the things that allow me to, like, get beyond that particular moment. And but I hear you, and I agree that there has to be thriving mechanisms. There have to be things that help you move beyond that moment,
Just
because
survival. Help you move beyond just survival.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because otherwise you are, you may end up back in that place, or you are always in flight mode, right?
Yeah.
Like, or always in fight mode, I should say.
Fight or flight, whichever
Or
one.
fight, either one, and you're not in a state of calm, a state of zen, of peace, however you want to put it, right? And I think that's a very real thing that people have to figure out for themselves, and we also have to figure out how to model that for our kids as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Extremely important, being able to model that for our kids, because they will have to get to those moments for themselves as well. And I don't know, what the easy way to model that for your kids is. And I don't know if you have any ideas on that, but I
Yeah,
think.
I
Go
do
ahead.
actually. And I appreciate you um leading into that the previous question into like this part of the answer, or furthering the explanation. So I think this is very relevant, especially for parents, but I would even say even more for dads.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
like so I would say one of my coping mechanisms as a parent is to, you know, make sure I give myself a break right when I walk in the house. Right? If it's a transition day and I get my kid, right? Because
mhm.
we co-parent
Right.
really well. I consider my ex-wife a friend, so I'm lucky in that regard. I'm not dealing with as much of the ex-wife or quote unquote baby mama drama. But so put in place like buddy, because he always asks what we doing when we get home. Yeah, we're gonna do when you after you finish your get home routine. You can chill for a little bit because daddy got to go do this. I don't. I obviously I know this is not for everybody, but like that small piece of time before I get into being a parent with him,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that could be like, hey, I'm actually excited about washing the dishes because that's going to give me that 15 minutes, right? Like I get in, do the garbage, wash the dishes. I got 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes right there. Then
Right.
he also gets time to do his get home routine, go to the bathroom, or just chill and watch TV and play video games or all of the above. Right? And so that's a coping mechanism for me,
Okay.
especially with like that transition day where I'm like, I'm coming off of not having my kid to like now I'm gonna have my kid. And I could have been dealing with a whole bunch of stuff
Mhm, mhm.
before picking him up from school that end of the day program. And so that's a coping mechanism. Right? A thriving mechanism, on the other hand, and I'm mirroring these on purpose, a thriving mechanism for me personally, I like spending time with my son. I like you said, I didn't my dad wasn't part of my life halfway through my life until he got us back until I was 14. And even when he got us back out of foster care when I was 14, he was wasn't fully completely there, right? He was navigating a sobriety recovery journey. He himself, because of that, was trying to get back on his feet while
Mhm.
professional. He also had a girlfriend at the time, and he got two of us back at once instead of one of us. So, because sometimes when they give kids back, they do one at a time, right? So he just wasn't the best parent, and he was it was rocky, man. It was crazy sometimes with him. Um, but to your point, when you first talked about like you didn't have that mom, I've always been the type of person if I get exposed to somebody who I know is doing a crappy job at something, I'm gonna do the opposite because I don't want to do that job like you. So
Right.
like, so and um and so I did have a model of what not to do, right? But I didn't have a model of what to do, and so I'm still
Right.
navigating what to do right now,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So one of my thriving mechanisms is that I like spending time with my kid. I like spending time with my son, like planned time, purposeful time, like, and to the point where he's 10. I don't, I don't know how other people like when our kids get to a certain age, they stop wanting to spend time with us. Like right?
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
I feel very blessed. I got a 10-year-old boy who's like, Daddy, can we play video games together? Daddy, can we do this together? Can we do that together? Can we do this together? And that might be because he's the only child, but it's also, I think, because I made one of my thriving mechanisms, like one of the ways that I fill my cup as well, is I get to do things with him
Yeah,
and
yeah,
do
yeah.
things with him that center his interest
That's
and
cool.
my interest at sometimes, but most of the time center his interest. So like I'm on the floor, even at the old daddy body age of 40, playing with figurines of dinosaurs or helping him build a racetrack and we're doing a
Right, right, right.
racetrack together, or even if it's like just schoolwork that he actually wants to do, like building circuits together, right?
Mhm.
But I would say that's like the example of the difference between a coping mechanism, like coping, like, hey, let me let me tap into this so I can like survive the day or
Right.
survive to the next moment, and a thriving mechanism where I'm like, oh, I got my kid this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's go to the aquarium. I'm like
Yeah.
excited about going to the aquarium, and I'm like doing research and looking up animals that I know at the aquarium. So when we get there, and he's like, Daddy, look at that, and I'm like, yeah, this animal does this. Did you know that? And because he's an animalist, he's like, yeah, I didn't know that. So like I get that. That's one of my thriving
That's
mechanisms.
cool. That's cool. I love that. I love that. And um I think that that is a great way to think about you know, being able to not only interact with your kid, but also understanding that I'm having a hard time with this right now because I'm thinking about my oldest, and I love him to death, but he don't want to play with me no more, man. It made me real sad, and it's like
I knew you would understand, man.
like, it made me real sad. And the funny thing is, it was funny because when COVID happened and he was like really into Pokemon. I got into Pokemon Go. We used to like walk around the neighborhood and play Pokemon Go. I got all the you know what I'm saying, catching all Pokemon. We joined a group of people on Discord who would go out and everybody out there wearing their mask and we all out catching Pokemon together. And I was like, me and him, we doing it together. We walking around the park and everything. And then one day he was like, and I was like, what? Like I'm out here. I got a hat. I got the Pokemon hat. I got the, you know what I'm saying? I'm like making sure my phone don't overheat while I'm out here catching Pokemon. Like we doing the whole thing. I learned all the Pokemon's names, and that when that happened, that joint floored me. I was like, what? You don't want to do this no more? I done went through all this trouble to learn this stuff for you, like, and it was like, okay, all right, it's done. I guess we on to the next thing. And then it was around that same time, it was Legos. We would do the Legos together. We'd sit down and do all the Legos and do a whole thing. And one day I walked back in his room. He had taken the whole Lego thing to get apart that we had put together. Like it was one of them sets. Like he had decided he was gonna take the set apart. You know, one of them ones that's like a car or
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
said, you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's like it's like 3 or 4 bags worth of stuff. And he decided he was gonna take the joint apart and do something else with the pieces. That I was like, what? We did all that work together and you done took it all apart. I don't know this. I'm like, who is this kid? He destroying me right now. And then it was not Roblox because I don't play that game. He plays that game, but I can't get into that. It was Fortnite, and all of a sudden he was like, "Oh my god, my dad plays Fortnite with me," and he was telling all his friends, and they was joining us on the team. We was playing Fortnite, and everybody thought I was cool. And then all of a sudden, he was like, "Nah, Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite no more." I was like, "What? I got a whole account on Fortnite. What am I doing? I don't like." Destroy me. But but luckily my little one, my youngest, I get to do it again. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
get to go through some of those stages again. And my little one is he and I get down on the floor with him. We building the all of the Legos and everything. And my mother kept my Legos from when I was little. So Legos was an important part of my childhood. So my little one, he loves his Legos and he like building them and he let me help him a little bit, and so that's been good. So I get to do it over again a little bit, but sure, it was. I mean, having those moments with them are really important to me. They have become moments that first off remind me of how great my kids are and how great I have it to be able to have them in my life. Um, and secondly, it also allows me to, get down with them and do the things that they're interested in. You know what I'm saying? And that's a really important piece, I believe, of um, taking on that interest in the things that they love, even if they don't love it long enough for you to. Uh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Now you were describing that stuff. I was like, that's definitely happened to me. Just not the same
I
topics.
was like, "Oh man, you gotta be kidding me!" And that, I can't get into. And my oldest is in the One Piece. I can't really get into One Piece like that. I don't know. I just
Is
haven't
it
gotten
is it
there.
is it One Piece or is it anime?
It's anime in general, and it was One Piece specifically for a while. I think One Piece he's kind of moved away from it a little bit. He's trying to grow into other areas of anime, and I try. I don't know. I'll take them to the comic book store. We'll walk around. They could pick out different comics. Both of them, and I try. And it's nothing against the comics themselves. I think the stories on them some of them are crazy. Some of them are very well done. The animation is the animation. Some of it's crazy. Some of it's
Animation
very
is
well.
animation.
It's,
That's all.
you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
So I be trying. But it's a very interesting that's a very interesting situation. But and with all of that said, I would never take anything away from any of his interests. And so I always celebrate their interests. And last year I took both boys to a comic. It's called Blurred Con, and it
Oh,
happened
you
here
went
in
to the Blur
Virginia.
Con?
Yeah. We
That's
went to Blurred
awesome.
Con last year.
Yo, if you go to the Blur Con this year, we gotta connect. We went to CosCon.
Okay.
So it was in Boston. Fan Expo. That's what we went to, a Fan Expo Con
Okay.
in Boston, and he dressed up as Pikachu. I was Snorlax. Some other people came. We all went as Pokemon, right? And he had a blast. It was a little overwhelming,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
because I love anime. I'm part of
Yeah.
that culture. I'm all about that. But I was also like, as an introvert, as someone who identifies as introvert who can present as an extrovert, I was like, yo, this is a
It's a
lot.
lot. But you know
This is
what?
a lot.
I agree with you, and this is we about nerd out just a little bit, but but I'll tell you this: the part that I always had that I had to remind myself of in that moment is that there are a lot of people at those events who are in fact very similar.
Yes.
Like they are normal introverts and they are out here doing the thing that they love, and that is what is fueling them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
with that said, I also felt like my son probably hit puberty a little sooner than he should have being there, because I was like, some of these chicks out here. My oldest noticed. My youngest did not. He
Yeah.
wasn't ready. My oldest was on it. He went with another friend of his too, and they saw it all. They noticed all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, but
I didn't have to deal with that. Like, he
no,
was
oh man,
younger. This was like 2-3 years ago.
yeah,
He was like 7, maybe 8.
yeah.
So
Well,
he was still he was just a
you take
kid. He
him,
was
you take him back
oblivious.
now.
Yeah, no, yeah, he definitely will.
He
He
might
definitely
grow a
will.
mustache right in the moment on that one.
He definitely has.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so with all of that said, like we've been talking for a little while now. I think what I want to do is transition just a little bit to talk a little bit about how do you manage the the stressors from outside as it relates to your relationship with your spouse.
I'm going to say this is a hard question, but I definitely wouldn't say it's an easy question. I think it depends on the external forces that I'm dealing with when answering the question. Because, like, honestly, to be real with you, John, like, I like the political and societal stuff. So, something that I did for myself to essentially stay sane, right? Because I know for myself that I have anxiety, right? And my anxiety manifests in rumination or just like catastrophization, right? I catastrophize, right? And so everything that's happening right now in our society, which it has been happening for a long time now, but it's just that much more um what's the word? Visceral, I guess, right
Visceral,
now.
yeah. I was just thinking.
Yeah. So one, I've honestly never really been a social media person. So one thing that I do is I'm on a break right now from social media. I'm not engaged with Instagram for the past, I would say almost 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
But I work in restorative justice and restorative practice work in the court system. And so I'll engage in local news, world news, and international global news that can inform my job. So I'm still aware of what's happening in the world, but I do not allow myself to be exposed to the level of toxicity and ugliness that is what our world is right now. And I do that for my own sanity, but I also know because my partner is the type of person who She exposes us to everything. And so
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
going to get the updates, even if I don't want to get the freaking updates. So that leads into the first, like with the external force of how our society and world is right now, that does not play as much as an impactful role in when I'm engaging with my partner as it could if those parameters and that reality wasn't what it was,
Gotcha.
right, or
Gotcha.
weren't put in place, right. Now the external forces that have and continue to impact my relationship with Kelly, my partner, is that of dealing with Elon's mom,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and her lack of interest in community or village, right? Because like at the end of the day, we center in Elon, right?
Right, right,
The
right.
reason why me and her get along so well is because we center Elon, and because we it was a very mutual, amicable split. Like I initiated it, but she was like, I get where you're coming from, and like yeah, so but I think there obviously was still some residual, I didn't really want this, or um, you could have tried harder for me. I could have tried harder for her to like
Mm-hmm,
give
mm-hmm.
her, be more patient with her around her racial awareness and our cultural differences. Um, and then also like I do think there's some aspect of like you married a black woman after me. So, so like I did think like sometimes how she navigates or how she exhibits with me, those three things are still there, and so
Mm-hmm.
like there are things that come up where I'm just like, dude, what is wrong with you? Why are you not like seeing this is a benefit, Elin? And you like, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't need that help, or what? Because Kelly is a godsend. She has offered to try to help and compromise and extend the olive branch, which is more like extending an olive tree to my ex-wife. When a lot of new wives, right, would not even that we even cross their minds.
Right, 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 right.
So like that sometimes comes into our relationship, but not so much like I'm dropping the ball in our relationship. More like I don't want to hear you vent about her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
a valid request, right.
Right, 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 right.
So that's an external force. I think another external force is navigating co-parenting Elin, because his mom raises my anxiety because sometimes how she responds and how she does things or doesn't know how to do things in regards to the child we share puts more labor and takes more capacity for me. So then I am navigating Elin through a deficit based lens,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
or I'm navigating being parenting Elin from a place of um, catastrophization or trauma,
Okay.
right? And then thank God for Kelly, because the thing that Kelly does do really well that I think a lot of step parents need to potentially learn from her is that she's like she reminds me, hey, your child is amazing, and she tells me the awesome things that he's doing. She provides an objective around like if something's happening at school, um, what's the other side? Like he's a kid, so there's something else that's happening at the school that should be happening, and kid, all the blame can't be put on him. And I know that, but
Mm-hmm.
but when you're dealing as a parent, when you're dealing with what you're dealing with, you can't think with all the faculties that you have at your
Right,
disposal,
right.
right? And so she does that, and I think this is most recently she just did this yesterday when she was just like going back to that you have to rework how you're thinking about his future or worrying about him, because how you're doing that is through a deficit based lens. It's not through a solution or strength based lens for him. And so even just how she interacts with Elin, how she reminds me, it's always like, you fine, you're doing a good job as a parent, he's a good kid. And so when that external force comes into our relationship, Kelly is extremely graceful and
Yeah.
extremely patient and extremely supportive. I honestly, I think this is just a long-winded way of saying like the external forces that do give us some problems in our relationship are primarily the external forces that are technically internal.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense. So
No,
what
it
I mean
does.
by yeah, what I mean by that is like we both are still dealing with healing from our respective traumas as
Mhm.
kids,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Healing from our respective traumas as like we haven't had the healthiest relationships,
Right. Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So those internal realities that we've been navigating and dealing with for 40 or 42 plus years now, externalize into our
Right.
relationship.
Right.
So that's what I mean. So
And
those, so yeah,
yeah, I think. Thank you for that. And I think that that is a very interesting. Um, it started the wheels turning in my mind a little bit because and I say this all the time. Like it takes two people, at least two people, to raise a kid, right? Like
yeah,
that family piece is important, whatever it looks like. Traditional, non-traditional, whatever it looks like, it's important because what happens in that situation is you have two people or more who are able to um both support each other and as well as support the child, and also reaffirm the fact that it's okay in those moments when you don't have the answers, when you're not always going to get it right, but if you're being supported by the other person or persons, then it helps you to maneuver that situation better, because we are, raising a child, you don't get the manual, what I'm saying, when on day one. When the baby is born, they don't also hand you the directions on how to raise that child. And because of that, like it is absolutely a learning process every day. Every day that you wake up, it's a learning process of how not to break the child, how to make sure the child ain't crying, how to make sure the child learn to walk, how they learn to talk. You go through that process, and the most important thing about that process is that you understand that it is a process, and that you understand that there are going to be times when you have to rely on other people in order to make that process work. And and I say that coming from a household where there was only one parent, and I know how difficult that can be on one parent trying to make all of that work. And so when you have other people who you can bounce ideas off of, or who can reaffirm for you that you are in fact um either doing it right or going through the right steps, or that the little person or persons that you are in fact raising are turning out to be not serial killers. uh you know what I'm saying, like, they're moving down the right path. Like those are really important things, you know what I'm saying, like Kelly being able to say to you that Elon is a good kid, and that it's not going to be 100% always good or always bad with him. There's going to be some gray area that exists in things that happen with him or for him, both externally and internally. And that's just helpful to have that
yeah,
that
it's
other
just yeah,
person there, right? Like, and I think I think both you and Kelly, and this is me giving therapy on the other end, counseling, if you will, fake counseling, on the other end, which is, who who's not getting as much of that? Elon's
his mom.
mother.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe she'll take it, maybe she won't, but she needs some of that as well, you know what I'm saying, because when she has him on her own, and her first thought may not be to call you and get your perspective on it, but she does what she thinks is right in the moment, and that, for better or for worse, and then the way that plays out becomes a situation of you having to, some cases, undo things,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Put out
or
fires. Yeah,
right. And so that is a situation that has been created in this family structure that she probably was not aware of. She didn't know that's she probably may not still be aware of it, that is what she's doing.
Yeah,
Um
she also wasn't planning on it either. So
right. But it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so things happen, but it becomes a situation of being open and honest with yourself enough to be okay with letting someone else help in those situations. And I think that's what you all are, hopefully. I believe you all are trying to create that a helpmate kind of situation in this, where everybody can be involved in it for the benefit of Elin. And sometimes that means people got to let emotions go. They got to put those things to the side. But it ain't always easy. That ain't always easy. Um,
yeah, no, it's
yeah.
not.
So, I mean, I look at my wife, you know what I'm saying, and I think about what we go through every day around here, and sometimes she's a good helpmate, and sometimes I'm like, she a jerk, but it's not. but it's not, you know what I'm saying. But I know that it's not because she is trying to be um uh uh
Jerk.
right, she's not trying to be a jerk. She's not trying to be, she's not trying to go against everything that I say to the boys, or whatever. She's just trying to balance me in a way that I can't do for myself. Like, I can't be the balance that I'm not the yin and the yang in this, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so that's just the reality of it. We created these two little boys who have components of both of us. They can't be their own yin and yang either, right? They need us. But I think that's the reality of it um when you are dealing with other people. And so that outside stressor piece becomes important to kind of leave at the door when you think about, okay, well, not only do I have to deal with myself, I have to deal with my kids, I have to deal with my spouse, and I have to figure out how we can contain what needs to be contained in this space in a way that is um going to maintain some kind of like homeostasis, where we can all be here and not just maintain, right? But like get to a place where everyone understands, okay, well, this is what makes me happy. This is what makes, why they're happy. This is this is what the boys need to be successful and happy, and like how we can all do that together. And like, it's not easy. And again, no manual. I ain't get no manual when I married my wife either. You know what I'm saying? Like, that ain't come either. I'm still waiting on that one. When I get the manual, or the why that manual. Uh
Well, you don't get a manual unless you go through divorce, and even when you get that manual, it's wrong. It could be wrong because
right.
it's a new model.
Right. And so you can read, you can read all the things you want. You can go out there and you can listen to everybody talk about what you should do or shouldn't do. But the reality of it is that you really got to take it one step at a time, and have those conversations in order to understand. Okay. And even when you have the conversation, you may not get the answer that is real. Like, I don't care what nobody say. You can tell me all you want that love languages are what make lasting marriages, people understanding what your love language is. But um I know people who don't listen to love languages. You could
Yo,
tell
for real.
somebody, you could, and it'd be like, my love language is X, and you ain't got X in X number of years. And because they you can't tell somebody else how to love. You can't tell somebody else how to be in that relationship. All you can do is try to like engage that person where they are. So I said a whole lot, and I don't even know if none of it.
No, no,
But
no, and you see, you dropping nuggets of knowledge, man. Like I appreciate what you just shared, and like the question that you asked, and I'm happy that you brought up what you brought up about Ian's mom, Megan. She doesn't have that like in in-house second person raising a child with her, right? And even if because I am because we I know I am like it's not Kelly's responsibility, so I am. I've been doing this. I actually even more so brought it up again recently to her to be like, you know, I think what would be helpful for us is sometimes we take that extra step of being like, hey, you're doing an awesome job as a child's parent. When something happens, or even just randomly, like the other day, um, she hit me up and was like, hey, me and Elon, we just did his exercises, and I actually exercised with him, and we did his schoolwork, and we did this. Did you get the alert? Because he uses Adapt Health, Adapt Help, I think, or Adapt Health. I can't remember the app, but he does math and other subjects on that app, and I get the report of what he does and when he does it and how he did it. And she like hit me up and let me and asked me, told me, and then asked a question, and I was like, "This is all amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy that you exercise with him. I know that must have not been easy because she's not an active workout person like I am, but I still was like, yo, that's awesome that you did that with him, and I hope that you like getting back into exercise, and even if you're not, like, I bet he was so happy to see that, and like kudos. She like, you're a great mom. I said all that to her, and she's like, thank you. And no, it was hard, but I think I'm going to, and we had this exchange that face value, you might be like, oh, that's a normal exchange. But in reality, it hasn't been a normal exchange between us, right? We are civil, we're cordial, we're friendly, but the kudos, the positive reinforcements, the 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 foundations that are in place for either one of us to feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable enough to be like, hey, you're doing an amazing job, or you're a good parent. That's just hasn't been naturally developed as the other stuff, like when you co-parent with somebody, such as like, oh, he has a doctor's appointment. Can you do this? Oh yeah, totally, sure, I got you. Thanks so much. Right? That's normally more cultivated,
Mm-hmm.
or the norm, right? Instead of what I just described. And so for you to bring that up, it's an aspect of affirmation, but it's also a continual aspect of reminding me that like she don't got two people now in the crib like she used to, and she definitely is the type of person who's like, I didn't get married to get a divorce. I wasn't either, but I also wasn't like gonna stay in a situation where I wasn't completely seen for my full reality, and then that spill over to our son, right? So like a lot of people on the outside might be looking in and be like, well, y'all could have worked it out. And, you're not wrong. But by the time we would have, it would have had that much more of a negative impact on our child. Right. And so what's better? Us staying married and screwing up our kid that much more than we already screwed him up, or us getting divorced and then our kid only getting screwed up by, that's it.
Well,
Like he's not screwed up by
yeah,
anything else if we would have
yeah.
stayed together. Right?
Well, this is what I'll tell you to that effect. Again, I've never been divorced. Sometimes I'll be like, boy, I'll be ready to get out. No, I'm just. I love my wife. I love my wife. I love my wife. No. So there's 2 points I want to make. One is I believe that it goes both ways in terms of like how people um are complimentary, if you will, for lack of a better way to say it right now, of the other parent. And I think that that actually goes for whether people have kids or not. So you think about how people think about their spouse. It's very easy to go to the negative and not focus on the positive of a person, right? So okay, I don't like to go out to dinner. You know what I'm saying? But what about the things that I do like to do? What about the things that I have tried to initiate, or the things that I um try to give to this relationship, right? Like, I think that there's a component of it where we always have to be willing to look at the things that are happening and remember to celebrate those things before we focus on the things that aren't happening and push those buttons, right? And so when you do that, when you celebrate the things that are happening first, whether it be in a marriage, whether it be with your children, whether it be co-parenting, right? You celebrate the things that are happening, then it makes those moments of things that aren't happening sting a lot less when you have to bring them up to someone. When you're saying to someone, oh, I really wish that you would go skating with me. Like, you never want to go skating with me, right? Like, but if they always want to go to the movies with you, if they, what I'm saying, if they the ones who cut your hair, if they the ones who, if they make you a meal every night, like whatever those things are, like celebrating those moments make those other moments sting a lot less, and it becomes a lot less of a feeling of all I ever hear is negativity. And I think what you're realizing, and what I'm realizing as well, is that sometimes we don't do enough of that, either sometimes to the kids, but definitely with our spouses, and in your case also with your ex, just acknowledging the work that is being done,
Being done, yeah.
what I'm saying, is an important
Mhm.
piece. And that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think that we have to be okay with um modeling those things openly in front of our kids. They need to see it. They need to understand that, again, not just to them, not just saying, oh, you did a great job on this ugly picture that you drew, or this,
Yeah.
whatever, like, but how we interact
With our partner.
with our
That's
partner,
different. Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's an important piece as well. They need to understand that, because we don't have daughters, right? But I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and they were talking about how they model things that they hope that their daughter will want to see in the man that she's with, if she's with a man, right? And I was like, that's all well and good, right? But I also want to model for my sons the things that I want them to be able to do and say to their spouse, and the way
Yeah.
I want them to communicate with their spouse. And that's a really important piece that I think
No,
we oftentimes don't.
that's a really important piece. Like, one of the stories that I appreciate and love that Kelly be telling to other people is there was one time, actually it's been a few times, but there was one specific time, because this is the first time he ever did it, where I was driving. So kind of how it breaks down, like, Kelly likes to drive. I don't like driving, right? I don't. I think I'm a good driver, but I just don't like driving.
Oh, she a road warrior. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
she a
saying? I
world
know.
warrior.
I know.
I know, right? So when we're in state, I drive. If we take her car and we in state, I'm driving. There's no questions about that. She don't ask me. I don't ask her. I just take the keys and I'm driving. Right, to give an aspect of a break, right? Because when we go long distances, she's the one that's driving usually.
Right, right,
I
right,
help out, but my help out is like 3-4 hours, maybe.
right, right, right.
Right?
She,
So, in any case, so there was one of the first moments where I was driving. We had Elin. I pulled in. Elin, before I could even open my door, hops out of the car and then opens the door for Kelly. And she's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And so I didn't even notice that this happened. We get upstairs because we live on a two-story walk up. And she's like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Elin opened the door for me." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so he's learning from his dad." And she's like, "Yes." And that's awesome. And you should really recognize that, because that means that he sees what you're doing for me. And I was like, "All right, okay. Yeah, no, you're right." I said, thank you for pointing that out. Because what you just said about that modeling thing, I'm gonna be real with you, John. Like, there are some things that are at the forefront of my mind, and there are some things that are just reflex, right? Like, Elin, I have, now that we're talking about, I have seen Elin do something similar to what I do. Like, when I'm with a female friend, I walk on the outside. Right? He's seen me move my body. And I've actually seen him do that, with his mom, right? Or with Kelly. So like for you to bring that up, I'm like, okay, I gotta be more mindful of this. Just so I'm not just doing it out of reflex, but I'm also happy that I just do it out of reflex
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
You know,
Some of us don't do it, and
yeah.
I say, look, but I'll be the first one to say I don't open the door for my wife, and this is and this is
I,
it's some.
I'm not doing that shit all the time, but you
I
know,
mean, but I hear you, but look, and it's not because I don't believe in it. I don't know. My um, Sometimes my wife is just like I think I get caught up. I'm just be really real with you. I get caught up in the fact that she seems so independent. Sometimes I just be like, oh,
mm,
she got it, and I
oh,
and I shouldn't, but I do. And
I want to touch, I want to touch that. I want to touch that.
I shouldn't, but I do. But I also I ain't gonna lie. I told anyway. So yeah, but not that I told her anything about opening the door for her. But I'm like it just don't it don't like be at the forefront of my mind because she just seems so independent. Sometimes like she got it.
So I think one of the things that I have deeply appreciated with being with Kelly is like just being that much closer to Black women,
Mm-hmm,
or like or being close enough to be in a Black woman's head who feel,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna be really explicit about this.
It's a dark, dangerous place in there, boy.
Good. I'm happy you said that. I'm happy what you just said, because I'm a say something to you and you'll be like, oh wow, why? Wait for it. Now check this out. What you just said is a distinct reason why I think a lot of Black women don't be letting us as Black men into their heads,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Now check this. So Kelly, I know for a fact, feels comfortable enough to be vulnerable enough to share with me how she feels and what she's thinking or what's happening for her as a Black woman, mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Because and that's not a norm. That's
Not
not a
normal.
norm. And you know that's not a
Definitely not.
norm,
I
right?
know it.
Especially for Black women, right?
Yes.
It's for to us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that one, very grateful for that. Do not take that for advantage, because I know that's not the norm, right? The second thing is like when what I wanted to touch upon that from what I just said that leads into what I'm about to say is this aspect of like you like oh yeah, because she sees so independent. Yo, you Kelly, you one of your good best friends. You know how independent this woman is. You
Mm-hmm,
know that she's the breadwinner. She make
mm-hmm.
more money. She make more money than me, right? But she was making more money than me when we met, right? And I already knew how independent she was, right? And, or but, whichever one you want to use, I was like, that's not going to change nor stop how I was. I don't, it's hard to even, oh, no, how I was raised. Because my mom, although she wasn't in my life a lot, I was a mama's boy. And she taught me very, very early on when you love a woman, when you love a person, you do everything in your power to show that you do. Like you respect them,
Mm-hmm.
you be a gentleman, you be chivalrous. Like, and I don't mean like in ways where you are taking power from them or anything like
Right,
that, but
right,
like
right.
in ways where you lighten the load. And the reason why I wanted to touch upon this because he's like, yeah, independent. Both our wives are Black, strong, independent women, intelligent, Black,
Mm-hmm.
strong, independent women, right?
Yep.
Right? And they have to be in their everyday regular life. They got to plan, they got to execute, they got to schedule, they got to organize, they got to do all that stuff because it's like super independent, like woman, like in power, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
so for me, if there's the smallest thing that I can do to lighten that load, to allow you to not have to be super independent or hyper independent on a regular daily basis, then I'm gonna do it. Right? That's how I was raised. I'm gonna do it. Right? Like just small things. It's not even about opening the doors or holding the doors or anything like that. It's the fact that let's say, oh, there was a blizzard and I was actually out of town. This happened. Like Kelly's car got snowed in and everything like that.
Good
She
old
actually had,
Vermont.
yeah, good old Vermont. She came and got me and everything like that. And then we had more snow happen, but I was in town. So when I was out of town, I couldn't shovel, our steers and everything.
Right.
But when I got back in town, Kelly asked me, "Hey, can you like get my car out for me, please?" and she asked me, and she thought I was gonna grumble, or she thought that I was gonna say no or have an issue. But she asked me, and my response surprised her because she thought all those things, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no doubt, I got you," and went and did it. It wasn't an aspect of like she asked me 5 hours passed by. You still gonna do that for me? No, I got my ass up and went and did it. Right? She needed something. She didn't ask me to do this. She was talking about it. She's like, "Oh, I gotta put some windshield wiper fluid in my car. I'm about to take this long drive down to work and da da da." I went down. I went outside and did it
Mm.
without her even asking me. Right? And then she was surprised. That, oh, I didn't realize you were going to do that for me. Like, oh yeah, no, I heard you talking about it. I had some extra windshield wiper fluid. I was downstairs already. I knew I was going to go out and be downstairs already. So why not? Right? And so for for me, if you're already allowing me to see in your head, your heart, and your body as a black woman, and I'm a black man, and I know that you doing that because you feel a certain level of safety and vulnerability with me,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm only going to try to match it,
Yeah.
or I'm only going to try to not necessarily just match it, but more so like honor it. I guess yes, I'm gonna honor that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that I respect the fact that you're doing that, and I know that's not the norm, right?
Yeah.
And so I that whole independent woman thing, it's not easy that our women, our black women have to feel that way, or that's their reality, and that's unfortunate. But the black men who are listening, if you're lucky enough to have, and obviously I'm talking this in a binary and a heteronormative
Mm-hmm.
lens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky enough where you have a partner and she's a black woman and she's letting you inside her head, her heart, and her body, and she's talking to you about her realities, the best thing you could do is be like, all right, she's not, don't just take it as she's independent, take it as like she's doing this, and like honor that in any
Right.
kind of way you can. Like even if it's the smallest way you can, but just try to honor it. And if I'm not being clear when I said let her in mentally, emotionally, and physically, what I mean mentally, if they talking to you about like, because I'll give you an example. Kelly talks to me about the amount of ridiculousness that she had to deal with because she was working with white women who just super fragile. That's
Right. Right.
mentally. Like
Right. Right.
she's talking to me.
Right.
I don't define it as venting. I don't define it as bitching. You can
Right.
bleep
Right.
that out, but I'm listening though, right?
Right.
She,
Right.
she she feels comfortable enough to be like, this crazy, this happening at work. She sends me emails. I'm like, yeah, you're not bugging. This is bonkers. This is ridiculous. Mentally, emotionally, she's telling me like, man, it's crazy and breaks my heart that I saw another black woman who's in leadership just have a heart attack.
Mm.
And I'm afraid of seeing my sisters pass away because they're stressed out. We get all these demands. They want us to be leaders
Right.
with a broken ship, and then they try to blame us. That's the emotional, right?
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
So you're like, how can I be supportive? She's not telling me this because she wants a freaking solution, right? As a like, turn that guy brain off. Like, stop
Mm-hmm.
trying to fix what she's trying to explain to you
Right. Right.
from her heart. Like, she's just talking to you about how hard it is about being a black woman. Same, like it's the same thing when we talking to them about being a black man in this world. We don't want them to tell us, well, maybe do you think it was a good idea to say that? No, like what? Why are you asking me that question right now?
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's the
Right.
same thing. It's the same thing.
No,
And
you're
then
right.
physically, on a real note, I'm 40, she's 42. I know you're a little older. You're not that much older than us, right, John?
I'm 44.
Okay, man, you're not that. We right there. We all together. So when if your woman is telling you and talking to you about perimenopause and hot flashes and cramps, you better not squish your face up. You better not make a ridiculous joke. Like, show some compassion.
I mean,
Show some like, dude.
I think you can make a joke
I
sometimes,
mean,
but
yeah,
it's
you
a,
could. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. You know what
yeah,
I
I know
mean.
exactly. No, I know
You know
exactly what you mean.
exactly what I
And you
mean.
know
Come
what?
on, man.
And that is no, I understand. I hear exactly what you're saying, and you're 100% right on it. As far as I'm concerned, because I think that it is oftentimes that is we live in a time where even now in the year 2025, the year of our Lord 2025, it is still hard for black women to feel seen and heard, even though they are the most educated people in this country. And that goes for all of those aspects you just mentioned, whether it be their mental or physical, they are not seen or heard enough.
Or
And so,
emotional.
or emotional, yes, thank you. And so, we have to be, again, a conduit for, like we have to be able to be open to listening and understanding what they are dealing with, if they are willing to share that.
Yeah, yeah,
And that it's it's the history of being the stoic foundation of the family for Black women that make it very difficult for them to necessarily feel like they can share that information with anybody. It is the reality of having to be, the backbone of the family, the matriarch, and having to be twice as better as other people. You know what I'm saying? Man or woman, and that's their reality. But and this is a if any women are listening, if any Black women are listening, it is important for you all to understand that the right man, the right Black man, is going to listen, is going to take all of your feelings, concerns into account, and you have to be willing to open up and share that information. And I only put that out there because for some women, I mean, I can't speak for all women. I can't speak for no women, honestly, but what I see sometimes is that women stay closed off because they are worried about being hurt.
yeah.
Um
Well, I mean, they got a valid reason to worry about that hurt. I don't know about you, John, but man, because I got way more female friends than guy friends.
mhm, mhm.
Um, than the horror stories I be hearing. Like our sex don't be doing right most of the time, man.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. But that also
It's a
but that
hot mess out there, dog.
but that is also a cautionary tale for getting into situations with the wrong people.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I mean,
yep,
let's just
yep.
be honest. You know what I'm
That's no,
saying?
that's real. That's real. Or what's the phrase or the conceptualization of like you don't want this to happen, but your actions make that
Right,
what you don't want to happen.
right.
Self fulfilling prophecy.
Prophecy,
So
absolutely.
so like, yep. So it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
Like you don't want to get in a relationship with somebody who is not the right person
right.
for you, and also you don't want to not do your own work,
Yeah,
so you don't have that self fulfilling prophecy happen,
yeah.
right? Because you could lose a good one, right?
I mean, I,
But if
I know you're not. I know you're not doing social media right now, but I saw a video the other day, and that jump threw me for a loop. It was one of them stupid the balloon pop videos,
oh my god, not the
and
balloon
and
videos.
and the woman said, "This is what she said." She's like, "Nah, he's not for me. He looked like he read too many books. He looked like a author or a librarian or something." And I was like, "For real?
For real,
So
for
you
real.
don't want to mess with this dude because he look educated? Because he look like he read? He looks like She was like, I like to get turned up. I like to go, out. I like to dinner. He looked like all he wanted to do is sit at home and read. And I was like, okay, all right. So we know what she out for.
Yeah,
She,
but I
I mean,
mean, but we said it though. That that person on one side of the coin, right,
right,
where you like choose the wrong person, if she would have chose that guy, they wouldn't have
hmm
been a good match. So she
right,
was actually doing what she's supposed to do on that side,
right,
right? But on the other side, if she's on this show, she might be looking for quote unquote looking for love. Why are you on that show
right,
if you haven't done enough work on yourself to understand where you are in your life? You're not looking for love right
right,
now. You're looking to have a good time,
right, right,
right? So
right.
like I both of those sides,
Yeah,
we could say what you just shared. On one side, she right,
right,
right? On the
yeah,
other side, she wrong,
right.
right?
But that's what and that's so. Anyway, so again, cautionary tale is you got to be both sides, men and women, we got to be ready for
Yes. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
situation we put ourselves in, and want to go about it the right way. You got to make the most of it, by putting the work in on the front end, understanding what we want, and really being realistic about it, and be willing to share. If you want somebody, I
Well,
can't
do your
guarantee.
own work. You got to
Do
do
your
your own
own
work
work.
to be
Do
able
you
to
for
share
sure,
and
for
and
sure, for
receive the
sure.
share too. You have to do your own work.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Man, Mike, this has been great. This has been a great conversation. We're gonna have to do this again for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
And I appreciate you being here. So I'm gonna close out the show with this one thing. It almost feel like we wasn't even on. Like I said, we're just gonna be vibing today. We've been doing a little bit of that. But I wanna offer you the opportunity to share anything that you want with the people. You know what I'm saying? Men, women, children, anybody who might be listening. Any like nugget of information you want to share with the people before we end today.
The hardest question you asked me up until this point.
Hey, and you don't have to if you
No,
don't
no,
have nothing
no,
now.
I do, I do,
Okay, okay.
I do want to share. I do want to share. I, I think as the piece of nugget knowledge or wisdom, if you want to take it, I would say is as a black father, who feels like he's done a good amount of work. One thing is like it's never over. You got to continue to do your own work regularly and consistently. And then the other piece of knowledge and wisdom I would say is like while doing that work, make sure you sprinkle in some self compassion for yourself, right? Like you just a human being, and although you might look back and or have other people say this to you and be like, "Yo, you're doing an awesome job," and da 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 da, right? But remember, like it's even when you get those kudos, and even when you don't get those kudos, it's you're still a human being. So pace yourself. Make sure you tapping into your coping mechanisms and your thriving mechanisms. And yeah, man, like do the best you can, but always try to do your best.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That I received that. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for sharing that. And for everybody out there listening, I hope you got something out of this conversation. Like I said, this platform is one where we like to have conversations that hopefully people can take back for themselves, for their partner, for their children, absolutely, and use that as part of your growing process as a parent. Thank you for listening to Daddy Confessions. Mike, thank you for being here. Really
Thanks for
appreciate it,
having
brother.
me.
Yeah, man. Um, anybody out there listening, everybody out there listening, you can find me on Instagram at the Daddy Confessions. You can also email me if you want at the Daddy Confessions at gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Peace.